We gaan luisteren naar Jeroen over Mastering Prompt Engineering. Het onderwerp was vanochtend al even aan de orde. Ik weet nu wat het is, dus ik ben heel benieuwd om er meer over te horen. Even voor de goede orde vragen.
Maybe in English, because...
Oh, it's in English.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. If you have questions during the presentation, we preferably take them at the end, if there's time left. If not, you're welcome to visit the Quality Engineering Demo Center below, and you can ask your questions there after the presentation. Okay?
Yes.
Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone. Welcome at this session, Supercharge Your Productivity, Mastering Prompt Engineering. And I'm super excited about this subject, and maybe you have seen that already after the keynote today. But the reason for that is quite simple. I want to imagine something. Imagine that someone is joining your company right now, a fresh new person, and that person tells you he has never used Google before. How would you respond to that? Sorry? No, nothing. So no, and nothing around that. So no Google, Bing, no things on the internet. What would your reaction be? Would you advise that person to start using it, or would you ask like, how are you getting your information then? And then that person tells you, well, I'm going still to the library because, well, I'm used to. Think about that for a moment. Because this is literally how I'm thinking right now about generative AI. If I'm still speaking with people and they tell me, no, I've never used ChatGPT before or any other generative AI tool, then I'm still amazed because it's speeding up my productivity by a mile. And that's what I want to inspire you today by, but also tell you how to prompt. What are we going to do? First of all, I will explain what prompt engineering is because, well, I've been at quite some companies and still a lot of people don't know it, so you will know it after this presentation. Then I will explain how to prompt. I've created a framework for that, so I will walk you through it. And finally, I have some inspiring, hopefully for you, inspiring things to show what you can do with those models and how you can speed up your productivity. But before I move on, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Jeroen Egelmeers, full stack developer and public speaker at Society. I am tech lead at Bovemij and IT trainer at Spectrum Multimedia IT. And of course, I'm also doing a lot of things around prompt engineering, what you've seen on the keynote maybe with the people there to, well, really work on the things at our company as well. Well, I'm not going to dive much further deeper into this because I want to talk about the subject I love at this moment, and that is prompt engineering. So what is it? On the right side of the screen you can see a ChatGPT for those who have never seen it before. And I'm going to use ChatGPT as an example throughout this session. And that doesn't mean that this only applies to ChatGPT, but I use it to, well, easily tell my story. So please keep that in mind that you can also use this on other generative AI tools. But let's talk about ChatGPT for this example. So ChatGPT is just this page with an input field on the bottom. And well, we probably know that from Google. Hopefully you're not that person joining your company. But we know that that's the input field. And you can actually enter there a message that you send to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will respond with it with its answer. Now, entering a message there is actually entering your prompt. And the difference from simply just writing a message or a prompt engineer is quite easy. A prompt engineer is really thinking about what should ChatGPT bring you as the outcome. So what should the output be? And by thinking about that really well, you get much higher quality and you really can deliver the right outputs what you expect it to be. So let's get to an example. I'm living here in the Netherlands and schools have started again. So let's go back all the way that I went to the high school for the very first time, taking up my backpack and moving there for the first time. Now, of course, everything is new, but my teacher tells me, hey, you have to write an essay about World War II in 100 words. Well, back then, I can still tell that, I was really lazy. So what I did, if I would have ChatGPT, I would just write that, right? So write me an essay about World War II in 100 words. and ChatGPT will give me the outcome, the output. And I can simply copy this, send it to my teacher, and I'm done. Easy. Problem here is, probably there will be some red flags raised at that teacher. And the reason for that is quite easy. My goal is not to, well, do this essay in a matter of fact, if you think about it really well. I want to get a high grade. I want to get a really good score. Now, the teacher knows that this was not written by me. I'm using words or maybe vocabulary, something that probably people from this age and this level of education don't use yet. So he will read this, come back to me and tell me, well, Jeroen, I told you not to use ChatGPT, but I'm pretty sure you did. So this is an example of a bad prompt. I'm not reaching my goal. So let's wrap this up a little bit. Now I know how to prompt, and let's get around that by my teacher and make sure that, well, he doesn't know that I'm using ChatGPT. So I'm using the same thing. I'm again asking to write me an essay about World War II, but now I'm also telling it, act like a student, because I'm a student, with A2 English in the first class of high school, and don't use difficult words. And the fun thing here is, I went to some schools to give presentations about this, and I gave them some options. And one of them was this one, and none of the people, none of the teachers raised their hand that this was written by ChatGPT. So it does actually work. And this is just an example of a bit better prompt, but we can go a mile further with that. Well, here is also the challenge that I was facing while I was giving presentations to a lot of companies. They came every time with the same questions. How can we remember what should be in my prompt? And maybe you have seen that as well in the keynote from Antoine this morning, that it's really difficult to really grasp what should be in there. So what I did is I wrote a blog, and during the writing of that blog, I created a framework. And in this framework, actually everything is in what you should know to write the right prompts. And during the rest of this session, I'm going to walk you through this framework. And I want to give you a quick of a side note here, because it might be that it, well, doesn't fall in the right place directly, but please keep in mind, on the end I will give you some examples, and you will be, yeah, okay, I do understand. And if not, I would love to hear on the end so that we can collaborate on it. So the Crafting AI Prompts Framework. How do we write prompts? The Crafting AI Prompts Framework has 3 phases. First of all, the crafting phase, where we are going to craft the prompt. We are writing that message. And writing that message takes some, well, extra steps we should take into account. I will walk through those steps after this. Then we are going to the validation phase. And this is actually very important for companies. Because what I see happening in a lot of companies is that they forget things such as GDPR, security, data compliance, and all those kind of things. They are just sharing their information to ChatGPT. The problem here is, it is saving all of your data towards that model and even trains it for later use for other people. So it might be that your data is ending up to other people, for other people to use. So keep that in mind. And that is something we want to think about during this phase. But also that it's interactive, so that you can actually work back and forth in your conversation, and goal-driven. Finally, we are sending that message to ChatGPT, for example, and then we are going to adapt and improve. We validate actually if the outcome is what we expected. Is our goal reached or not? And if not, then we are going to adapt and improve on it to make sure that we actually get to that goal, so that we actually fool our teacher if we go back to the first example. So let's get step by step towards the complete thing. First of all, from craft we have context. And you have heard this already quite a few times today. Context is key. During this session, I hope I'm going to inspire you actually to use it directly today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a LinkedIn post with you. So I'm going to walk step by step through the framework, writing a LinkedIn post, so you can actually do this on the end as well. Maybe even at another session, but would be fun. So in the context, I'm going to share with ChatGPT where was this presentation all about. So in my case, I gave the presentation, so I'm going to tell ChatGPT, well, I gave a presentation at QX Day. I was a speaker there about the crafting AI prompt framework, motivating people to start using generative AI, etc., etc. Well, maybe I want to say something about the audience, maybe I want to say something extra about myself. All kind of things you want to take into account and you want to share to ChatGPT to make sure it can write you the right story. Then we are moving to the register. And here we are going to think about how you want to formulate things. So do you want to have a very exciting message, or maybe, well, a bit down to earth? Because if you're not doing this, you will probably get very excited messages because it's trained on a lot of American data. And I don't know if you've ever watched American television, but it's super exciting. Well, we are a bit more down to earth, so maybe you want to take that in account while writing your message as well. So maybe you want to say, keep in mind my writing style. So you can share some blogs from yourself on some extra information that you have wrote earlier. You can share that to ChatGPT to make sure that it takes into account your writing style. But also, for example, if you want to check your grammar or something, that's really something you can do during this phase, during this block, to make sure it takes it into account. Then the acting role. And these are templates within, for example, those models, so ChatGPT, to help you make a better thing out of it. So, for example, in this case, I want to write a LinkedIn post, so I ask it to act as a LinkedIn expert with, for example, 15 or 10 or 20 years of experience. I'm not going to dive into the differences of experience you can use for ChatGPT, but I'm going to share you a link on the end where you can completely read this out, how this works. But keep in mind, we are just using a LinkedIn expert with 10 years of experience. Now, what this will do, it will trigger a template in those models. So, for example, it's automatically going to use hashtags because a LinkedIn expert does that. It's going to not use bullet points because it's not possible on LinkedIn, but instead it's going to use emoticons. And maybe it starts with a nice title and it's a bit more formal. These are all things that the acting role will trigger for you automatically. And that doesn't mean that you cannot interact with it still. You can still say, act as a LinkedIn expert, but be very excited if it's not the case in that template. I can tell you it still is, but if you would like to change it to another format, that's possible. Another thing you can do here is ask for a specific point of view. So imagine that you're brainstorming about some subjects. You can ask ChatGPT or other models to get another point of view from another person, for example. How does a manager look at this? And it will come up with some ideas, which are based on the acting rules again. It's quite interesting to challenge when you're doing some brainstorming sessions or whatsoever. Then we are moving to the format, and this one is very important. You always need this one. And why is that? Well, if you're going to write something, you expect something from ChatGPT. But how does that look like? And I would like to use a user story as an example. I've been at quite some companies, and they all write it still a bit differently, even though there are some templates which we all should use, right? So, but still we keep it a bit to ourselves, and everyone does it differently. In this case, if that is the case, that we use it differently than it is written down in, well, papers or whatsoever, then I want to make sure that ChatGPT is also using the same format as I do. And the reason for that is, then I can simply copy-paste it and use it instead of reformatting it to my own way of how I use it. But also, if you are not using the acting rule, you can also still format it to use hashtags, or use emoticons, use graphs, or whatever you can think about. But make sure you completely describe how it should format your output. And finally, you want to do something. So in this case, I want to write a LinkedIn post. Or maybe you want to translate a text. Or review this document. There are a lot of different words that you can use to specify your task, but I have been at a lot of companies discussing this topic, and I see a lot of times people using the wrong words for what they actually want to achieve. Because reviewing or revising is completely something different. So think about the words you are using for your task, because that is also the key in prompt engineering. One word can really make the difference in your outcome. And then we have our prompt. We have our message written, right? So we actually built that complete thing to get that LinkedIn post. But now we want to verify in the validation phase a few things. First of all, is it interactive? So maybe I want to ask it to refine the second alinea. Or I want to have it a bit more excited because it was a bit too much down to earth. And you can think about anything else you would like to do. That is something you verify before you hit enter, because otherwise, if we are talking about sustainability, you're asking more resources due to the fact that you're doing more prompts. So check that before. Then we are going to non-disclosure. And this is very important for companies. And I cannot say this often enough, but even though you have to be sure you're not sharing any confidential data in your prompt, so don't share any names because of GDPR. Don't use confidential data. Maybe even if you have prompts that you're using within your company, like we shared today in the keynote, maybe you don't even want to test them on ChatGPT because you are exposing it to the world. Think about that really well before hitting enter, because as soon as you hit enter, it will be saved to their models. Then we are going to goal-driven, and here you actually want to verify what is your goal. So am I a student who wants to make that essay, or do I want to get a certain grade? Do I want to have a high score? What is your actual goal? And there is a big difference in this, and I hope you get that already with the point I'm making as a student. So do that also for your prompt. So if you build your prompt, in this case I'm going to write a LinkedIn post, think about it, is my goal met? And here is the takeaway I want to give you at first. If I'm using an acting role, such as act as a LinkedIn expert, to write me a LinkedIn post, what will happen? Will it write a LinkedIn post for me, as Jeroen Egelmers in this case, or will it act like a LinkedIn expert and write a LinkedIn post? There is a huge difference in it, but the way I just described it, it will be a LinkedIn expert that is going to post a LinkedIn post. So what will happen? As a LinkedIn expert, I'm very excited to share that I just had a presentation about prompt engineering. Not really what I want, and that was not the goal I was trying to achieve. So keep that in mind. And then finally, we are going to hit enter, send it to ChatGPT, and then we are going to verify, is our goal met, goal-driven, and if not, what do we have to do to adapt and improve to actually get, again, to the goal we want to achieve. And this can be done by just going back to the crafting stage, craft a new prompt based on what we already had, and forth and forth. So this is an iterative process that can take some time. And well, we have seen a very good example, I think, in the beginning of this day with the 1,300 words. So I think that is a very nice example how long it can take to actually get to a specific goal that you want to achieve. But I think this is already a very nice start for you to create your own prompts and to understand what should be in and how this prompting process looks like. Because we are through the framework actually, and this will bring you to something like acting as a role, perform task in format requirements, use register or writing style, and use this context. Now, and if I want to translate that to, for example, the LinkedIn post, then act as a LinkedIn expert with 10 years of experience, write me a LinkedIn post about the session I just gave at the QX Day. In format requirements, I want to use hashtags to get higher reach. I want to use emoticons because I like that in my posts, etc. Use a formal tone, but be excited because I am, so I want to have that still, even though I'm from the Netherlands. And use this context where I'm describing what I did in the beginning, where this session was all about. So prompt engineering, crafting AI prompts, maybe I want to say something about the audience again, etc., etc. But be as specific as possible, because then you will get also a better outcome. If you're going to the link below, then you will be redirected to my LinkedIn page, to a blog that I wrote completely about this framework, so that you can just read through it carefully on your own time if you would like. But I want to give you a few more a few more notes. This is an example. So I'm going to give you a lot of other examples right now, and I'm not using this syntax. But still, the building blocks are mostly in. Or otherwise, I think about it that I will use them in upcoming prompts. And remove any abstraction. Because what we mentioned also in the beginning, garbage in is garbage out. So if you're not specific enough, if you're not telling what the format output should be, if you're not telling what the context is, it's just going to think about it by itself, and you will get something that is not going to reach your goal. So, now it's time for some exciting experiments with it. First of all, I cannot say this enough, because we have seen this already at Samsung, who shared information with ChatGPT. We have seen a lawyer in America who actually built this complete case with it and failed because he came up with some suits that, with some laws that didn't exist. So I want to make sure that you're not sharing any confidential data from your company. And then you might think, well, yeah, what is the use of those kind of tools then? Well, first of all, of course, there are enterprise versions, or what we shared earlier today. There are a lot of platforms coming up that are private, so that you're not sharing your data. But otherwise, if you still want to use it, you can use placeholders instead to start with. So in this case, I'm writing that LinkedIn post. This was actually from another conference. And I'm writing a LinkedIn post there, but I didn't know yet if I could name the company's name, and I want to verify that before sending it to ChatGPT. And also the people's name, the people who invited me. I think they're also somewhere there. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it, but there's person A and person B. And I use placeholders for that. You can use any format you would like for that. But I used, how do you call them? Those birdie phrases, and then the company A or company B or whatsoever. So you write it that way, and what you can see actually below here is that ChatGPT will do exactly the same for you in its output. So this way I can copy this part and replace the placeholders by my actual data, if I verified that I can do this. But at least I didn't share it with ChatGPT, and I know where it's ending up. So this is a way to use placeholders and to make sure you're not sharing any confidential data. But there is more. One thing I really like, and this is a very good example of interactive prompting, is reviewing. So before I wrote a lot of articles already or blogs on LinkedIn, but the problem I was facing there was that I had to ask a peer or someone to review my blog because I can speak okay English, but I don't like writing that well in English, so I had to ask people to check it out for me. The problem is, I was writing my blog, very excited that I could finally share it, but I first had to bring it to a peer. He is reviewing it, giving back my feedback. I had to do everything with it that he was requesting, sending it back and forth, etc. Takes a long time. Right now, I can just share it to ChatGPT. I can simply prompt to review my stuff, and I can get directly feedback about if it's okay or not, or even rewrite it if that is necessary. So let's take this one as an example also for the framework. So we're going to zoom into this. And what I'm doing here is I'm asking ChatGPT to do a few things. First of all, review the parts that I'm sharing. But then I'm also asking it to reply with correct if it's correct, or else edit it. And the reason that I'm doing this is that if I don't ask this, ChatGPT will just write out always the same text. So even though I wrote something completely correct, it will just send me the same text back, which takes quite some time. And the reason for that is, if you have seen it, it's just typing it for your feeling. So that's, if it's long post, taking quite some time. Now, I don't want that, but let's walk through the framework. I will share excerpts from a blog I'm writing. That's the context, and the context is actually the blog, so I'm going to share that later on. Then, the role of a blog writing expert with 20 years of experience, that is the acting role. Review it, edit the content if necessary. I'm going to ask for the correct, etc. later on, but review it, task. Then provide the edited output or respond with correct, so that it will send me directly correct if it's okay, so that I don't have to wait for that. Format. Then keep the same writing style as I used. I'm sharing my blog post and I don't want it to be more exciting or whatsoever. Maybe it's giving me back a very emotional story. That's a bit strange if I have a very exciting text, right? So keep the same writing style as used. Register. Oh, wait, I'm too fast. Register. And this brings you to context, register, acting role, format, task, craft. That is also what I introduced during the framework. Of course, there is some more information there, but that is additional, and mostly you can bring this towards one of the other parts of the framework. So, for example, replay with OK to acknowledge this request. That is just to start off with. It's part of the format, because I'm asking for output. But this is really how it should work. And I tested it, of course. I'm not going to give this presentation not testing any prompts, because we want to validate it. One more note here. So I did this with my blog. I copied the text, sent it there, and I, of course, asked ChatGPT always to review it, so it should be correct. And yes, it is correct. Now, I also did want to show you that what happens if I make some mistakes. So no, this was not in my blog, but I made some spelling mistakes on purpose. You can see them with the green things around it. And what you can see now, it's just writing back that same message, that same text, but then changing the words towards what I did want to write down. Very, very, very helpful, because this way I can speed up my productivity very much. Then one more thing, and I really love this one. Maybe you have all had this once, hopefully. Think about a moment that you did want to learn something new, and who is using sometimes YouTube for that, just to learn something. It's almost everyone, maybe even everyone. Yeah, me too. But the problem I was facing there is that when I went to YouTube and I had some specific topic in mind, some YouTube videos took like 2 hours, while I only did 10 minutes of this video. So I was scrolling back and forth to find that right place, right? And yes, YouTube had already some nice features now in place, but still it was really triggering me. I was like, if I ever can fix this somehow, I will, directly. Well, ChatGPT is there, and now I have something to fix this. So what I'm doing, I find that YouTube video with some kind of subject I want to learn about. But again, it's only somewhere in that 2 hours video. So what I do, I go to the YouTube video and click on the transcript part. So there are 3 dots. You go to transcript and you get a transcript about that video. So you can see that here. And what I do, I copy that complete transcript. Then there is a problem, because what I did want to do is, of course, who can already fill it in? Bring this to ChatGPT and start doing my prompting. The problem is, if you really have videos from 2 hours, then it doesn't fit, because ChatGPT only accepts a certain amount of data per prompt. So what I'm going to do is I move to ChatGPT Splitter, another tool that is available on the internet. I paste there my text, ask it to chunk it, so it breaks it up in different chunks. I copy all the chunks to ChatGPT, and I can start prompting. So for example, can you give me the key takeaways from this video? And the fun part of this is, and actually I don't have the slide here, I see, but the fun thing about this is that I can go further with that. What I can do is, if it says like future of AI and job roles, or I see here actually, let's do it this way, GDPR, that's interesting. I want to know more about GDPR. Okay. Then I can ask ChatGPT, I want to learn more about GDPR. From which time step onwards should I start watching? And that does actually work. Because you're sharing the transcript, you receive the actual time step you should start watching, and you don't have to scroll back and forth anymore, but just can directly go to the key point and the point where you did want to start the video at. And this is actually speeding me up also a lot, because I don't have to watch 2 hours of videos I'm not interested in anymore. So that's very valuable. Now I can think about it that you, hopefully I triggered you at least a little bit that you start using it on your daily job. But please be aware of the fact that you are not sharing any confidential data. That's one thing I hope that we can agree on, so that we're not going to do that. But I'm going to help you a little bit further to start using the framework, and also to experiment with it. Because what I also mentioned after the keynote, yeah, I can tell you for hours more, and I can give you hundreds of examples, really awesome ones as well. If you would like to know more, go back down after this session and join me at the prompt engineering stand. I would really love to show you much more. But you really learn it also by just doing, right? I think there are a lot of testers here. You have experienced a lot of cases just by running into them. So experience it yourself and make sure that you just play around with it so you get really the understanding of how to prompt. But to help you further, I have this nice cheat sheet for you that you can start using. Just in the beginning, to understand the framework, I think I have most of the most important things written out here. So you have a clear understanding about what kind of acting rules could I use, or what formats are there to start outputting the right format from ChatGPT, how the adapt and improve part works, etc., etc. But yeah, hopefully on the end you will just know it by yourself, because I think craft is easy to remember. Yeah, that's it for me. Why am I telling this? Well, first of all, I hope you're not that person who joins a company and states, I've never used Google before. I hope you can tell your peers from today onwards to start using generative AI. You have learned something, and trust me, you're still a front runner. So go back to your job tomorrow and tell everyone, this is something you should learn as well, because it will speed up your productivity. Because once again, AI will not replace you, but people who use it will. So if you all stick with this and you say like, okay, great story, but I will wait for 10 years, then other people will start using it and they will be more productive than you, which will result in, well, you can fill that in yourself. Use handouts just to start working with it, to understand it. What is in it for you? Well, it speeds up your productivity. I think it's a more sustainable future. If we go back to the current conference, QX Day, sustainability, because it's part of every job. If you know a job where this will not be part of, and then I'm talking within IT, then I would really happy to hear that, because I couldn't come up with it yet. And understanding how to prompt is also more sustainable, because you need less prompts. And by using less prompts, it's less cost. You don't have to spend much money on it, because every prompt you're doing, you have to pay for it. So it's much more sustainable. But also resources, etc. We have heard about stories about electricity, etc. I think this is a very good example of that. So thank you very much. And if there are any questions, I would love to answer them. Yes.
How do you use ChatGPT in your own work?
Good question. What I already mentioned is that I'm an IT trainer, and I am doing this for a social return program from our company. And this is with people with autism. We try to get them back on, well, just to have something to do on their day, because they are mostly at home, doing nothing, let's state it that way. But I was struggling with that because I'm there 2 days at location, and I had half a day to prepare everything. So think about assignments, presentations, review their work, etc., etc. Well, I think we can all estimate that that's a bit too much for half a day. So then ChatGPT came out, and that is the tool who guided me. What topics should I do next? So we are doing their PHP, for example, with Laravel, because that's something they can directly see as a result. But I also had to dive into that again. I'm working with Java and React, so that has nothing to do with that. Of course, I have a lot of experience with that. But ChatGPT guided me, well, first dive into this topic, and then that. And maybe you should spend 2 days on this. There are a lot of things that ChatGPT can do for you. And of course, you have to think about it yourself as well still, validate it, make sure that it's just guiding you, but think about it yourself still. So I don't know if that's the correct answer for you, but
Yeah, thanks.
cool.
But you guys going to start, like, hoe zeg je dat, verplichten? Making it a requirement that society, that everybody, I mean, if you say people are going to be replaced by people that use AI, then society would be really stupid not to make sure that everybody that works at society now can use AI, because they're all going to be replaced by someone else who's not using AI. Is this not a policy that should be introduced at society, or are you already doing this? Just a question.
We are not doing this, but we are all technology-minded, so I think a lot of people already experience with it. But what I already mentioned, I'm going now to a lot of different companies, and most of those companies did block ChatGPT completely. So people were not allowed to use it at all. And some of them are now investigating it or even started with their own private tooling. And now they are interested because they are like, okay, we're struggling with getting the right outcome. We're struggling with getting the really right formatted output. So we need some guidance there. And then they really start investing in those kind of things.
But Society, you're going to speak to your CEO next week, I think.
I will have a chat with him. Any other questions?
Your background is developer.
Yeah.
Which role should be suitable for exploring this? Do you see more quality engineers or more developers or maybe business analysts? What's your favorite starting position?
So the question is that from the organization, from your organization, for example, which role can best invest in investigating how this works? To be really honest, I think it's for everyone interesting. And most importantly is everyone has its own point of view. So as a developer, I'm facing some kind of challenges. So what I already mentioned, I'm an IT trainer and setting up a track for 9 months. That's pretty difficult to do. Definitely if you have to think forward to 9 months what I'm going to learn people. So that is a challenge I am facing and what ChatGPT can help me with. But for example, in your expertise, there are other challenges that ChatGPT can help you with maybe. And that is the reason that I think it's for everyone valuable and that everyone should think about it for themselves. And that's why I'm also trying to trigger you, try it out yourself. But I don't think it's specifically on a specific role. I would invite everyone to do it. And that's also what I'm advocating at our own company. Start using it because yes, we have seen, to get back to my own role, we have seen that people with ChatGPT, for example, are as fast as a junior than a senior without. So that's terrifying for me. I was like, whoa, okay, I have to do something about it because how will this turn out on the end? And there are still a lot of challenges here because you don't want to share your code towards ChatGPT. But if there are enterprise versions, for example, then this will turn around. So it's better to invest on it now and have some clue about how it works. And I think what I see, and I don't know if I mentioned this this morning as well, but I like to add it. I was in a company and I went there on Monday and on Thursday. And on Thursday, someone came back from the Monday session. I did yesterday in 1 day what normally takes me 3 days because of prompt engineering. And I was like, yes, that is awesome to hear. So, and that was not someone on a specific role that should start investigating it. No, that was just someone within that company. Now that could be maybe you from now on. Is that answering your question? Anyone else? No? Then I want to thank you very much and have a great time ahead.